Welcome to Legal Innovation Spotlight, the podcast that brings you the latest advancements in legal tech and knowledge management. I'm Ted Theodoropoulos, and I connect with the industry's brightest minds to provide you with valuable insights and actionable takeaways. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Amy Monaghan, how are you today?
I'm doing so good. Hi, Ted. Nice to see you on a Saturday.
I know. We're working on the weekend here a little bit.
We're dedicated.
Well, first thing I want to do is publicly welcome you to the Infodash team. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
I mean, it's been almost 5 months now, hasn't it?
Has been, yeah. Time flies.
But I hadn't had a chance to publicly say that. So, well, why don't we talk a little bit about your background so everybody knows, where you came from and what you're doing now. You started the world, you started your career as a practicing attorney, and It sounds like you transitioned quickly into a KM role. You worked at Chapman and Perkins, a couple of great firms, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. And actually, my journey begins well before that. And I think it's worth noting. So I actually started out in the art world. I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago for my undergrad, still make art, still have an arts practice. So I was the very, very opposite of this legal world, this like hyper creative, very tactile world of art. But when I was wrapping up my fine arts degree, I got really interested in the business and legal side of art and started thinking about what I could potentially do more on the business side of things with the art world, as opposed to trying to make it as a professional artist, which very few artists are able to do. So I knew I was always going to have a quote unquote day job. And I was super interested in, and I actually ended up writing a thesis about crimes that involve art, so primarily art theft. And I got really, really interested in like the investigatory aspects of that. And there's a big art historical aspect to that as well, like high research focus. And so I, at the time, read a book by an FBI agent who was focused on investigating art crimes. And I was like, that's cool. That combines literally everything I want to do. It has a huge research focus. There's investigatory focus, an evidence-based focus, and also tying in art. And so I looked at what the requirements to be a special agent with the FBI are, and art, not one of them, but law was one of them. And so I was like, actually law would be an amazing degree to have. I feel like that would prepare me to do all kinds of things, even if this FBI thing doesn't pan out. So I decided to go to law school. I did not go into the FBI, as should be self-evident. I ended up going down a very different path for a whole bunch of reasons that would be a completely different podcast. So if you ever are interested in that, just hit me up and I'll tell you the story. But I was still super focused on what I could do to blend, this art and creativity background with the practice and the business side of law. And so straight out of law school, I ended up going to an art-based not-for-profit in Chicago, and I had multiple roles there. I was the only attorney that was on staff there, but I also was in charge of fundraising for the not-for-profit. So I started working really heavily with data, financial data, preparing really detailed reports to go over with the board, identify different funding sources, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck for fundraising purposes, who should we be targeting, what's the most efficient way that we can be raising money. So I had this whole financial data side to my role, but then the legal side was pretty high volume actually. I was drafting and negotiating and executing license agreements with different filmmakers from around the world. And so I had to figure out how to be super efficient at that practice because I was the only person doing that. So I started teaching myself how to automate documents, originally with mail merge, which was, it did the job. I mean, I think there's still a lot of fancy stuff you can do with good old Microsoft Word products and Excel products. But then I started getting really interested in how I could use machines more and more to help me do my legal job. And so I started doing some research. I sat in on a lot of ILTA webinars at that time. That's how I became familiar with ILTA, the organization. And that's how I started learning about things like natural language processing and the very beginnings of machine learning in legal. And I was super, super fascinated in that. I was building out my own process maps to kind of walk through different legal issues that were coming up and just super quickly be able to cycle through things that were on my plate. And so it's actually through the ILTA job portal that I found the Chapman and Cutler role, and they were building up their knowledge management function at the time. And the job posting was like literally every single thing that I was doing at this not-for-profit, but super focused on knowledge management. And so I joined Chapman and Cutler, and we eventually transitioned away from knowledge management and rebranded as Practice Innovation. And that's where I got to do all kinds of cool things. I started working with machine learning products for Chapman and building out our own custom models. I got to learn how to do document automation using actual document automation tools. I was building client sites and practice sites on our intranet and our extranet. Just really fun. It was a really great environment for me to, really learn how to do innovation in a law firm. It was a super creative place to be. And then the opportunity at Perkins Coie came up. And so I joined Perkins Coie to help them build up their practice innovation function. And then we had a lot of demand on the client side at Perkins for innovation and innovative solutions. So we eventually transitioned to a client innovation function that I helped, again, build up and lead. So it's been a long, winding path, but it all makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's rarely a straight line. My career was all over the place too. I actually used to work for Microsoft and was on the SQL Server. Well, actually, I started on the Microsoft Access support team, and that was, God, I'm really going to date myself here. That's when Office 2000 came out, and there was a new feature that allowed Access to act as a native front end to SQL Server, and they needed people who knew SQL. I was like, I know SQL. So then they threw me on this client server team. And I started consulting on the side, and I landed a massive client, Maersk Sealand, biggest shipping company in the world by several orders of magnitude. And I worked for them in a moonlighting capacity for years. And then the side gig started making more than the day job, and quit the day job. And here we are 25 years later.
Yep.
So it's rarely a straight path, but yeah, your path is an interesting one. What is it like to lead innovation at a large law firm?
You need gear, you need helmet, you need gloves, you need armor. No. So it's a lot of things. It is fun. For me, as long as I'm like learning and I'm having fun and, I get to work with great people. Like if those things come together for me in a role, I'm always going to find ways to have fun and be happy. So leading innovation in a large law firm is a lot of fun in a lot of respects. But it's also, as I learned, sort of as I kind of rose up through the ranks at Perkins, it is a highly political role. You're dealing with a very matrixed organization. In a lot of ways, law firms are flat organizations. You have the partnership, and then you also have like the firm, the administration, the platform function of the firm. And then you have each individual partner as a part owner of the firm. And so there's really not much, there are leadership roles in firms, but you have individual leaders across the entire firm who all have different priorities and different agenda and different goals. And so I really quickly learned that in order to be successful at innovation in a law firm, we really did need a rock solid innovation strategy. And that strategy had to map to what the overall firm strategy is, because the firm strategy is really what brings together all of these disparate goals and creates cohesion and gets everyone at least trying to row in the same direction. And if you don't have that, innovation more than likely is going to not be successful, because you're going to be pulled in 5 million different directions, and every single thing is going to be important. And you don't have any guardrails to say, actually, this isn't important. I can't take this on, and here are the reasons why. So I learned that the hard way in the beginning. Had some amazing leadership at Perkins that were able to, sit side by side, and we were able to work through what our innovation strategy should be. The timing was good too, because the firm was also thinking about adopting a new overall strategy. So I would say the strategic element, I think, gets overlooked when people are talking about innovation in law firms. And so that one, I, again, learned it the hard way, how important that is. Um, other aspects of leading innovation in a law firm that, again, I learned all of these the hard way, is a lot of times, innovation is actually about help, like saving people from themselves. So again, there's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around innovation, which is great. But with that also comes a lot of ideas. And a lot of times I've seen innovation in a law firm get lumped in and sort of like overwhelmed by legal technology. And so I had to spend a lot of time like separating those out, because technology is a very important component, almost always, not always, but is a very important component to innovation efforts. But we have to be really careful that that doesn't become the only thing that we put focus and attention on. The questions that need to be asked are, does this make sense with the law firm business model? Is this going to ultimately help the firm bring in revenue or other ways of providing value to the organization? And those are not questions that I think a lot of people who are running, knowledge management and innovation teams and efforts in law firms, you're not trained to do that, right? So no one sits you down and like gives you a guidebook on how to run innovation. And one of the first questions should be, does this fit with the law firm business model? So again, that's just things that I kind of learned the hard way. And then getting back to saving people from themselves. So I would have partners come to me with amazing ideas, like, can we build this application? Can we build this app, get it in front of my client, and it would make the client's life easier because it does X, Y, Z. Great idea. Doesn't fit with the law firm business model. The total lifetime cost of this thing is actually going to far exceed any revenue that we'll ever bring in from this client. It's going to have such high resource costs, and so even at that outset phase, I never wanted to discourage people from having amazing ideas, but I also wanted to get to the point where we were saving them from a path that was going to lead to just misery for everyone.
Yeah, I know it's so we started off as AcroWire in 2008. We kind of fell into the legal vertical. Our first legal client, they don't even exist anymore. They were a default services firm that exploded during the financial crisis. Obviously, there were a lot of foreclosures in 2008 through 2013.
Yeah.
And they were growing so fast, they needed a partner. We went in there and did a full-blown Lean Six Sigma engagement. It had a lot of technology. It had a lot of process in addition to the technology component. ABA Journal did an article on it, which was pretty cool. But they had control charts and metrics with TVs up on, it was a big wide open floor. Their staffing ratios were what you would expect. Like, some firms have very high staffing ratios, intellectual property, immigration, default services is another one. So they probably had, 10, 15 attorneys and I'm guessing 300 employees that were down there actually doing the work. And they had TVs we helped them put TVs up there with control charts and metrics so they could see where bottlenecks were in the process. Law firms, I've never seen it before or since. Maybe it's happening out there, but it was really cool. And like I said, the ABA Journal did an article on it. But yeah, we got a taste really early on, and we helped them do some things in the custom world. And over the years, I've seen law firms really want to go down that custom dev path.
Yep.
And, my warning is, hey, we can do that. It's actually what we do, but
Yep.
the total cost of ownership, the development and deployment costs are discrete, right? It has a beginning and an end. Once your system goes live, like tie a bow on those costs, that they are what they are. But the maintenance, the support, the training, the enhancements, those go on for the lifetime of the project. And somehow that gets missed when whether it's IT or a vendor comes in and pitches this approach, they neglect to properly reflect that in the TCO equation. And I assume in
Right.
your experience, you saw a lot of that too.
Yeah. So I joined Chapman in 2014. I graduated law school in 2013. So, I've been doing this legal innovation role for 11 years now. And I will say, sort of like in defense of the build it approach back in the day, there just aren't tools on the market. I mean, we really did have to cobble together our own solutions just to meet the needs. However, in 2024, I don't think that places should be, for the most part, should be building their own tech. Law firms, first of all, it's just the resource issues there, and then the total cost of ownership they were talking about. And we have so many tools on the market now. I mean, the market has just exploded. I know you did an episode with Zach from TLTF. Like, this market is only going to keep going up. There's only going to be more and more solutions out there that help meet the needs of law firms and their clients. So I think we're in a place now where that buy versus build decision is probably easier for making the buy decision. We built custom stuff at Perkins, and we did it out of necessity. But the market has come along now, and now there's solutions out there that meet not every single need that we had in our requirements document, but they, again, the 80/20 rule. Like, if we can get us 80% there, if we can have a standard solution that is configurable to the point where we can get it 80/20 and it meets core needs, great. Like, that lowers all the costs for everyone involved. And I think now with the focus that Microsoft is putting into the M365 stack and everything cloud and Copilot, like, firms really should be focusing their internal resources on becoming experts in all things cloud, particularly M365, because there's a lot of capabilities there. And then you can start to plug in point solutions along the way. But I don't think we need to build all of these, zombie custom solutions anymore just because of where we're at with the market.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Sometimes you have to do it by necessity, but when there are off-the-shelf solutions, I mean, look at our evolution as a company. We started off doing custom intranets, and we did that because law firm intranets have been around for 25 years. There's a screenshot I pulled from an ILTA presentation. God, I probably pulled it 10 years ago. It was 10 years old then. So now it's 20 years old. And I use it from time to time when I'm presenting. And that was from 2003. So 21 years ago. But they existed even before that. SharePoint came out in like 2002,
Yeah.
maybe even 2001. I think it was called like Site Server, and then it became SharePoint. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man, people were doing like cold fusion, like it was. But yeah, so now that's not the case. There are lots of off the shelf solutions, and
Yeah.
law firms are at a disadvantage more than most businesses in terms of doing custom dev. One
Mm-hmm.
reason is it's really hard to attract and retain tech
Yes.
talent. Like
Yeah.
tech rock stars, they don't want to work for law firms. Law firms are laggards. Like if I am a tech all-star, the last place I want to, maybe government. Okay, it's government and then it's law firms, right? So it really makes it difficult, even if you manage to get it across the goal line. Maybe you have a vendor come in and help, but hey, man, good luck supporting it. I hope you have a big, deep checkbook.
Yeah, I think that's true. However, I've worked with some amazing tech folks in law firms, so like I think that
Sure,
there are some. I think you're correct. Like on the whole, it's really hard to attract good tech talent into law firms. But I have worked with some amazing ones, so I think that
sure.
they happen to be outliers. I think we got lucky.
Yeah,
uh, I mean, I think there's all kinds of issues with attracting top tech talent into law firms, but like also, do we really need that now that we're in the space that we're in with all of these amazing products and vendors on the market? Like, can we get the appropriate support from our vendors to help fill in that need? We need great CIOs in law firms, don't get me wrong. We need people to make sure that servers are up and running, DMS never ever goes down, we have no cyber incidents. We have no breaches. Like, yes, we need great tech talent to help mitigate risks within law firms and keep things running. But on the point solution side and like that, the custom application side, I just don't think that I don't think the demand is there anymore.
yeah, and I should clarify that. Like, so I'm not absolutely not saying there's no tech talent in legal. There is. There's a lot of it, but most people who are in it fell
Hmm.
into it. I
Yeah,
don't know anybody who just got whatever, graduated with their CS degree and goes, yeah, I can't go wait, I can't wait to go work
yeah,
for a law firm. That's just not the typical path. But I mean, look
right.
at I would be slapping myself in the face if I said that there's no tech talent in legal. I'm in legal, not for a law
Hmm.
firm, but we work with law firms. So
That's
yeah,
right.
thanks for pointing that out. And I agree with you that like some of the no and low code
Yes.
options out there with Power Apps, workflows with Power Automate, that should be the first
Yeah.
consideration, because when you start breaking out code, and I mean, you've got a whole host of things to manage.
Right. Right.
And there's great tools out there in addition to M365 that provide those capabilities. So that's a good point.
Totally. And I think, just to add to that, I also think like the tech talent in law firms is evolving as it should. So you have a lot of us came out of knowledge management. You have the rise of either, JDs, former attorneys, or, just like super keyed in business folks who have an interest in the technical side of things and can start to leverage all of these low code no code solutions to build solutions for distinct practice or client or business problems. And so I kind of lump those folks into the tech talent within law firms. They usually don't sit within IT. They're usually sitting within KM&I or a practice group or some other function within the law firm. But they are, we're getting more and more technical. But I do think that that's a byproduct of the better tools getting on the market as well.
Yeah, and the reason that people, the really rock star tech talent folks don't just, legal isn't the first place on their list, is because there's been historically an underinvestment
Mhm.
by law firms in technology, and that's very true. And there's numbers to prove that.
Yep.
However, I do see that starting to change a little bit now. With after that Goldman came out, a
Mhm.
report where 45% of legal tasks can be automated by Gen AI. Now it's starting to change the mindset of
Yeah.
these executive committees about
Yep.
investment, and I think that could really change the tide a little bit if there's investment. That, as a technologist, I was a developer for years. I still write SQL all the time. You want to go where you can play around and build on the latest and greatest,
Right.
right? If you can't, that is a deterrent in moving in that direction. And that's been the case. Law firms have been very cloud averse. The am law is just now moving in earnest to the
Hmm.
cloud, and most other industries did this 7, 8, sometimes 10 years ago. And I understand why. Their clients have been partially holding them back, but we've seen a lot of firms just say, In fact, we just talked to one at Legal Week who they've been customers of ours for years on the consulting side, but Infodash only runs in the cloud, and we can't run on-prem. And
Right.
they told their last client, hey, we're moving. If we
Right.
lose your business, that sucks. We hope we keep it, but we're moving. And so far, I don't think they don't think they've lost a client.
Yeah.
Granted,
Yeah.
it's only 3 months ago, but yeah, I think they've been scared. I think firms have been scared to move.
Well, I think so. I think there's the client, the client rules piece of it, and I encountered that as well, where we had clients who absolutely forbade any of their information in the cloud in their outside counsel guidelines. Some of them happen to be cloud technology providers, which I always found highly ironic and hilarious. That's a whole side conversation. But I think a lot of outside counsel guidelines are just outdated, and no one wants to no one wants to update
Totally.
them. Yeah. But also, getting back to sort of like the law firm business model. So law firms are cash-based businesses. And so there's not an incentive there to really invest in the future because we're clearing the books every single year. Partners are going to get their profits out, and then every year that restarts again. And so, creating investment plans that don't have true payoff until many years down the road is very hard to line that up with the core law firm business model. So I think the incentives internally have been lacking. There has not been client pressure. And also, people don't know what they don't know. And so if partners en masse within firms don't have innovation people educating them on how they can be a better lawyer with certain technology, they're not going to know that. They're not going to, they're not going to be asking for that until they understand how this can improve the quality of their work, improve their experience being a lawyer, improve their clients' experiences engaging with them. That's actually where I spent the majority of my time, especially at Perkins, is helping with we built a lot of products, but they were always complementary to our legal services. So we were kind of living in that legal service delivery space where we were looking for ways that we can improve engaging with and delivering work to our clients. And some of the stuff that we did also improved, the quality of work. It also improved the quality of the lawyers who were doing the work and improved their life, maybe in a tiny little way, but, do enough of those tiny little things in the aggregate and you start to make some real change. So I think that the internal incentives just haven't been lined up. The external incentives and demands haven't been lined up. But I think we're at a point now, thank you to OpenAI for helping
Yes.
move us in this direction really quickly. But I think we're at a point now where firms can no longer ignore needing to make those investments.
Yeah, agreed. And another dynamic, in addition to the business model, you're 1,000% correct. But another dynamic is influential partners nearing their retirement horizon, right? So, a typical technology project, sometimes the ROI or the break even is years out, and maybe that horizon extends past the retirement horizon. So if I'm voting, am I really going to vote on something that's where I'm going to be in the red when I finally retire? So that's another interesting dynamic. But our journey as a company going from custom dev to product, the reason that we did that was, well, one, there's only been really crappy products out there doing what we're doing. Sorry, that's just being honest here. But another reason is we saw so many challenges with the solutions that we would deploy, getting firms to be self-sufficient in handling the maintenance. So when SharePoint Online came out, we knew we wanted to go there eventually. This is the early days. This is SharePoint Online really became viable with something called Wave 14, which was back in maybe 2013. And we knew then, but it took us years to really figure out how we wanted to do it and who we wanted to be when we grow up. But what we've tried to do is like create a maturity model. So like I hear about law firms all the time hiring these consulting companies to come in and do these six-figure envisioning engagements. And you know what? That made sense when there were all these unknowns 10 years ago. We know every use case. We've been doing this 15 years. We've seen every use case. And it's not just us, other people have too. It's the likelihood that an envisioning engagement is going to uncover some unique use case is really, really low. It's not
Yeah.
zero, but it's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
And so what we have tried to do is create a product and then create a create like a maturity model, like a customer journey
Hmm.
that allows firms to strategically roll their intranet out in stages. In fact, you know what? I'm going to try and share it here so we can kind of take a look. But yeah, so this was, I mean, this is not a novel concept, right? They have
Hmm.
these sorts of things in other industries. But when I hear about law firms spending hundreds of thousands sometimes on envisioning engagements, I just want to show them this and go, look, there is a path here where all of these use cases, you can still a la carte this menu if you really want to, right? If there's something in stage 3 that you really want as part of your MVP or your stage 1 release, you can certainly do that.
Right.
But we're finding even with really big firms like 1,000 attorneys and up, they look at this and go, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's been, and you've seen that firsthand, have you
Yeah,
not?
I have indeed. Yeah. I mean, so I do, I think that there was a point in time where those big, multi-day envisioning sessions probably were needed. And I'd argue that to the like level that they were done probably was never needed, but to some extent they were needed. However, there's cons with that approach, particularly where we're at now. You're pulling in very expensive people, first of all, especially if you're pulling in timekeepers in a law firm and partners at that. Like, they should be working, they should be billing. That was one of the things at Perkins that I learned and always distilled in my team, those we were working with, is we always tried to minimize the amount of timekeeper time that we were using, because the most important thing for them to be doing was to be billing. And so,
Opportunity cost.
yeah, totally, totally. So, I think pulling together super expensive resources for a really long period of time is problematic. It's also problem, and that cost is on top of the cost of doing the session. So you're just burning money at this point. But then also, one other problematic approach with those massive envisioning type sessions is that, especially in law firms, if you speak it, you get it. And so you start to set expectations that, yeah, we're just going to build a chimera zombie thing to solve for every person's, what they want, their little thing, even if it's just important to them, they're going to get it, even if it makes no sense at all, and it's going to be really expensive to maintain. And so, one of the hard lessons that I learned is that is the expectation in a law firm: is if I tell you I want this, I'm going to get it, and you're going to find a way to make it happen. And so I think when you bring people together these massive sessions to hear all ideas, and you're writing them down, or you're putting them sticky note on the whiteboard, like, people are seeing that and thinking, I'm going to get that, and that's going to be mine for as long as I want it. So I think there's a problem with that approach, in that you don't do a great job of properly setting expectations with the ultimate state group of stakeholders and end users. Whereas when you have a standard solution that is highly configurable, you put guardrails around what people are going to be able to ask for and get. And actually, a lot of times, the functionality that is included in the configuration capabilities will address what they're asking for. It may not be the exact same language, but it will solve the problem.
Yeah, that is a great point. It's and again, going back to the TCO, the total cost of ownership, going down that custom dev path, factoring in not only the consulting engagement cost, but the opportunity cost of all of your people who
Right.
have to allocate time
Right.
that becomes a really tough sell. And what we've seen as well is, and this is unfortunate, but we've seen it quite a bit actually, where the recommendations that come out of those envisioning engagements from a technology perspective are biased,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, that maybe there's partnerships that they have, or maybe there's competitive issues with other vendors in the space, and the recommendations that are being made, again, we've seen it firsthand, aren't aligned with the client's best interest. And that is really unfortunate.
They're biased, or they're self-serving for that
Right.
vendor, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is even worse. Yeah. 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 And then I agree with you. I agree with you. And we see clients who have suffered from that and now, are trying to implement our solution to help get out of that, vicious cycle that becomes this highly customized beast that you have to maintain. And again, that expectation is set that we're gonna build it all. You ask for it, you get it. We're gonna maintain it in perpetuity. Um, yeah, it is. It's a disservice. It's also a disservice to the industry at whole because those are
It
shitty.
is.
Pardon my language.
Yeah. We're all adults here. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the industry, we deserve better tools. We deserve better
Yeah.
solutions. And again, like people don't know what they don't know, and they've just taken like crappy tools as the norm.
I know. I know. And it's, we see too, and I understand this dynamic is sometimes in law firms, they're so used to getting shitty solutions that sometimes they'll look at the broader market. And in some cases, you can do that. But legal, I'll just use the internet world because I know it so well. There are industry agnostic solutions out there. And in the AmLaw space, I can count on one hand how many their
Right.
install base, and none of them are happy.
Right.
So, so going down that, but I understand the reasons why you would look elsewhere. It's for exactly what you just said, which is, and I think it's been all the M&A, the TRs, the Aderants, the Lateras, go on these buying sprees and buy up smaller companies. And then, sometimes the innovation stops. Sometimes they kill the products, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, which has been unfortunate as being on the user side of a lot of those products that have been absorbed by the larger companies. It's unfortunate. There have been some amazing legal tech startups along the way that have since been acquired by, your TRs and your Lateras. And you're right, the innovation has stopped. A lot of times they have brain drain, the people who were the creative forces behind the original product are no longer there anymore. And they stopped listening to customers. That was my biggest gripe is,
Yeah.
there were some phenomenal places that because we were like, law firm client number one or one of the first 10, we had a great voice and could help you give them ideas of how we needed them to progress their solution to fit our needs. And that's an amazing, like that's my favorite part of being on the user side of legal tech. And getting to work with some of these startups is like, oh, I can help you. I can help inform your roadmap because you haven't thought about, these 5 use cases that are very important to us. And similar firms are probably going to be able to use these as well. So I really liked that aspect of legal tech startups and working with them on the law firm side. That declines, particularly as companies get bigger and they are, especially if they get acquired by one of the larger companies. And also the customer interactions fall off and people just stop listening to customers. So like I'm trying to do the opposite of that here at Infodash. I'm building the client success function the way that I always wanted it as the law firm user. So highly collaborative, constant feedback mechanisms. It's in our best interest as Infodash to listen to all of our customers, how they want to use Infodash, how they are using Infodash, what are some gaps. If they make sense for our product roadmap, let's talk about how we could get those in. But also, how can we as a company, being able to look across the industry and work with all different kinds of firms that we work with, how can we start to bring together best practices, guides, get people talking to one another, to learn from one another, share the knowledge that we're gaining by being able to sit across the entire industry. That was also another thing that I found lacking with a lot of the legal tech products that I've worked with over the years. And we would ask for it outright, especially with the much larger legal ecosystem tools that are out there. We would ask, like, what are your other customers doing to solve for this problem? Can we talk to them? Can we bring together a group of us and talk to them? Sometimes we would get that. Other times it was met with resistance. Again, because it probably isn't in anyone's best interest to do that. So we're not doing it. We're doing that. We're doing it the right way, in my opinion, here, and how we're building client success. Because, I want all of our clients to be empowered to build amazing things using Infodash. I want them to be able to solve solutions for their practices and their clients and their professional staff in law firms. Like, we deserve better. That's my mantra.
Yeah, no, we really are doing some things differently. Like I have gotten feedback, and by the way, I'm not trying to beat up on the big boys out there. Like they are steering a really big ship with a
Absolutely.
really small rudder, and I understand that. We are the opposite of that. So we have luxuries that they don't.
Yep.
Um, Sometimes it's just a blatant disregard, and that's a whole nother story. But I don't think that's always the case, to be
Yeah.
fair. But we
Yeah.
are doing some things differently, and I know I agreed to not keep you too long on this Saturday afternoon. But just real quick, um, the success plans that you're writing, I have gotten feedback. People are blown away. They're like, I've never. So, as part of our customer success, so just take 2 minutes real quick to talk about our success plans and how we're doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for all of our clients, sitting down with key stakeholders and really understanding what are their goals that they're trying to get met with Infodash. What are, immediate term goals? I mean, a lot of times is we need to get on to SharePoint Online, and we're using that as an opportunity to redo our intranet, and Infodash is an amazing solution. We want to implement Infodash stage 1. Like, great. That's a great primary goal to have. But also, let's look into the future and let's start talking about some of the law firm's goals. What are some strategic goals? I want to learn more about where the law firm is headed and talk about how we might be able to collaborate, how firms can use InfoDash to help meet some of those goals. And then also, let's talk about challenges. Let's get all of the foreseeable challenges out in the open, and let's strategize how we can work together to help overcome some of those challenges. And that's something I think that is quite unique. So in my years at a law firm, I never had a written success plan. First of all, I never had someone sit down and take the time to walk through, goals and challenges with me, and like put that in a document where we can, it's a living document. We have something to refer to. We can update it as needs change, and also laying out specific success criteria. Like, here's how we know that we have both been successful, because we're codifying that, and we're making sure that we're revisiting that and addressing, have we not hit this? Why not? Do we need to change this criteria? Let's talk about that. So that's how we're approaching client success and the success plans here. And yeah, I've gotten great feedback as well, which warms my heart, because I like it when I get validation for doing good work. um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and again, like that's an iterative process. We'll continue to tweak and improve it, the more and more clients that we work with, and the better that we get at that process as well. And also, trying to build up some scalable resources for people as well. So we're prioritizing training resources. Want to get a really robust library together for people for on-demand training. And then also, what are some ways throughout our engagement with firms? What are ways that firms can tap into our knowledge and help us? We can come in and help with all kinds of opportunities, whether it be, in like live training opportunities, on the product innovation side, what are some super cool ways that we're tinkering and creating solutions with Infodash, or what are other firms doing that's super cool that we might be able to share, how they're achieving that. So really thinking about it as a client first function, but also using that to help us continue to improve our product.
Yeah. And we're also on the extranet side, our new product development. We got an advisory panel of 8
Yep.
amazingly smart senior C-level folks to help guide us. So we are listening, and we're big fans of the work that you're doing, Amy, and we're thrilled to have you on the team.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Good stuff.
And all right, so we're gonna wrap up. Just a quick word. You're going to be sitting in this seat here soon. You're going to help co-host a few episodes, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be great. You speak their language. So for the folks out there listening, look for Amy as the host of Legal Innovation Spotlight, the guest host, coming real soon.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Good stuff. All right. Well, listen, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we will chat soon.
Thanks, Ted.
All right. Take care. Thanks for listening to Legal Innovation Spotlight. If you found value in this chat, hit the subscribe button to be notified when we release new episodes. We'd also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate us and leave us a review wherever you're listening right now. Your feedback helps us provide you with top-notch content. Want to dive deeper into the world of legal innovation? Connect with us online at getinfodash.com, where you'll find additional resources and articles. You can also follow us on social media at getinfodash to stay updated on the latest news and insights in the field of legal tech and knowledge management. Once again, thank you for joining us today on Legal Innovation Spotlight, a fireside chat series hosted by Infodash.